Before we begin this episode, I need only 60 seconds of your attention. This week and this week only, we do our only fundraiser of the year, givetorch.net. What do? We ask our friends, our listeners, our viewers, our participants to partner with us so that we can continue doing the work we do. We don't cancel any classes. We don't make any exceptions for days off so that we can raise money. No, we want to continue to teach. We want to continue to influence in every way we can. Just so that you know, last year, in 2025, our videos grew 295% in their exposure, in their viewership. Our podcasts grew, some of them 10%, some of them 30, 40, 50, 60, some of them 200%. Really unbelievable growth in the listenership of our podcasts. But not only that, we have in our Torch Center, we have ongoing classes. We have lunch and learns. We have evening classes in chavaras in people's homes. We have our Torchwood community. We have Torch Unify, the new young professional division of Torch. We are guns blazing, doing unbelievable things, and we want your partnership. We need your partnership. GiveTorch.net. Thank you. And if you want to hear an extended pitch, you can listen at the end of this podcast. We have some testimonials from participants, and you can hear more about what we do. My dear friends, thank you and enjoy the episode.
You're listening to Rabbi Aryeh Wolbe of Torch in Houston, Texas. This is the Everyday Judaism Podcast.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Everyday Judaism Podcast. Today we are going to study Siman 117, chapter 117 in the abridged Code of Jewish Law in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. And today we are going to learn a collection of laws relating to Pesach. As we know, the halacha tells us that 30 days before the holiday, you shall begin studying the laws of the holiday. And since we are within those 30 days of Pesach, we are going to learn some of the chapters this week and in the coming weeks, preparing us for the laws of Pesach. So we're going to learn some collection of laws, that's what it's called, Ktsas dinim melukatim lepesach. So one of the prominent halachas among the laws of prohibited foods is the principle of Bitul, which means nullification. This law dictates that although it is initially prohibited to mix a prohibited item with a permitted item, if the prohibited item did become mixed into the permitted food, the prohibited food may become nullified if it was mixed into a certain amount of permitted food, a 1:60 ratio. So Bitul b'shishim is a concept that most of us are familiar with, and the mixture is permitted to be eaten. So if you have a drop of milk that falls into your chicken soup, since it is a complete mixture immediately, it's just a drop. So it's considered that it is batal, it is already nullified, and therefore it does not render your entire soup not kosher. Okay. There's qualifications to this which we will see. The halacha applies with a number of significant differences to the laws of Chometz on Pesach as well, and is the subject of extensive discussion in Shulchan Aruch and its commentaries. Kitzur opens the Siman with a brief summary of the halachos of Bitul as they pertain to the prohibition of eating Chometz on Pesach. So imagine the following. Imagine you have a fully Pesach house, a fully Pesach dish, a fully Pesach salad, and then something which is not kosher for Passover falls into it. You put in an ingredient that wasn't kosher for Passover. What do you do now? Does that same rule of 1:60 ratio, chametz to non-chametz to Passover, also qualify there? So the halacha now says, Im nimtza ezet zaroves chametz be'erev Pesach, if a mixture of chametz and non-chametz was found on erev Pesach, before Pesach, ad halayla, until nightfall, hareu kemo shar isurin, it is subject to the same halacha as a mixture containing other prohibited foods, shebatel b'shishim, namely that one part of the prohibited food is nullified, that one part is nullified in the 60 parts of permissible food. Lochein, therefore, im nimtzo garin be'of ubetafshil, if a kernel of grain was found during the time that you were cooking a chicken, a fowl, or in a cooked dish, zorko, the kernel can be discarded. V'hashar mutar lechol afilu b'Pesach, and the rest is permitted to be eaten on Pesach. Aval b'socha Pesach, however, if it was found during Pesach, Chometz oser afilu b'mashahu, then Chometz, even in the minutest amount, prohibits any mixture in which it is found. Gam b'hana'ah, from benefit as well. So it's not enough to just take it and throw it out. The whole thing is not good. Okay, and you can't sell that chicken to a non-Jew either, even though for him it doesn't make a difference. It's a delicious rotisserie chicken, but you can't either have hana'ah from it, you can't derive any pleasure from it. Thus, in any situation where shenimtza eze garid mechameshes min dagan o mashu chametz, where a kernel of one of the 5 types of grain, which we mentioned previously is wheat, barley, spelt, rye, and oats, that can become chametz, or a minute amount of chametz is found in a dish on Pesach, a question must be asked to your local bona fide halachic authority. Okay, that's halacha number 1. Be'er maim shenimtzu bo garine tevua. In regard to a well in which kernels of grain were found on Pesach, ein lehistapek mizeh maim ela bedocha gadol. One is not to use this water unless it is a very pressing need. Kigon she'ein maim acherim benimtzav. There's nothing else, no other water. You don't have any other water well. So now what are you going to do? This is the only water you have. So then you can use it. But if there is, ve'im nimtza bo chatichas pas, what's if you find a piece of bread in the water? So now the whole water is chametz, right? Asur, it is prohibited to use the water. Afilu ein mayim acherim, even if there's no other water to use. Vegam sinun lo mehani, and straining the water doesn't suffice. So if you just take out the piece of bread and now you sift through all the water, everything that comes into your house, you're going to sift through the water, make sure that there's no chametz in that water, it doesn't help. Okay? The whole water has become chametz and therefore it cannot be used on Pesach. So we see that the laws regarding Pesach go from strict to extremely strict. All right? There are people who only have water on Pesach that was prepared before Pesach in barrels. And you think it's like back in the early 1900s, 1800s, right, where people would bring the water from the river and they would have it outside, and that's the water. There are people who do that for Pesach still. All right, that's not our custom, but there are people I know that do that. After the feathers of fowl are plucked, the bird is singed momentarily in fire in order to remove the stubs that remain. This if addresses a precaution that should be taken with regard to fowl that will be eaten on Pesach. Okay, so you're buying chicken. When you go to the store and they say that it's chicken that is kosher for Passover, that means the following has been adhered to. Noagim shelo lehavhev esaofes. It is customary not to singe plucked fowl. Bekash she'im hashibon, with burning straw that is attached to the ears of grain. Ki chayshinon, for we're concerned, shema yesh behem garin mechumatz. Perhaps they contain a kernel of chametz that will impart flavor to the fowl. Because if you use that little stalk or straw of that flour, there could be a little bit of the flour that will go into the chicken, and now it'll add flavor to it. Shema yesh bo garin mechumotz, that perhaps they contain a kernel of chametz that will impart flavor to the fowl. Therefore, we singe only with grass, or cut off the ears of grain from the straw. After the fact, if someone did it, it is okay, it is permitted to use it. V'yizor, however, one also must take caution, litol es hazefek min ha'of, to remove the crop from the fowl, kodem shemahavin oso, before one singes it. Okay, the crop which contains undigested food, may contain Chometz. The Mishnah Berurah does not specifically require one to do this, but does recommend cutting open the bird and checking it well for any grain, because you don't know what may have been consumed by this bird prior to it being slaughtered. Halacha number 4, kol mine kitnios asurin. All types of kitnios. All right, the laws of kitnios are very, very interesting, right? This is one of the stringencies that the Ashkenazi community abides by. And the basis of this prohibition, the custom to prohibit kitniyot, is based on the concern that at times kernels of the 5 types of grain get mixed into these grains. Additionally, kernels of rice and other kitniyos are sometimes ground into flour, and bread is baked from the flour. Since some people may confuse this flour with other flour and may come to permit bread baked from flour of the 5 types of grain that are Chometz, the sages were stringent with grain of kitniyos in all forms. One should be aware that although the restriction of kitniyos is referred to as a custom, nevertheless, in the communities where this restriction is followed, it has been accepted with the stringencies of a law, and besides certain extenuating circumstances noted below, one is obligated to adhere to these restrictions as he would with any other halacha. So we say, yeah, it's a custom. It's true, it is a custom, but it's a custom that's become law because it's so widely accepted by the Jewish people. Now, the Sephardic community does not abide by this because they never accepted it upon themselves. They lived in a different part of the world, and therefore it was never part of their custom, and they never accepted this stringency upon themselves. So, kol mine kitnios, all types of kitnios are prohibited. Kitnios is generally translated as legumes. Actually, the term kitnios refers to plants that, other than trees and the 5 species of grain, that produce edible seeds. There is much discussion among the later halachic authorities regarding the extent of this prohibition. Okay, one more thing here is the custom of not eating kitnios is followed by Ashkenazic Jews, but not followed or followed to a lesser extent by many Sephardic communities. An Ashkenazic woman who marries a Sephardic man, or vice versa, assumes her husband's customs. V'chein, kol perus yiveshim asurim. So too, all types of dried fruit are prohibited. It was the practice in some places to sprinkle flour on fruits while they were drying, or to prepare dried fruit in the same oven as bread. Therefore, the custom in certain countries was not to use any dried fruit unless it was known that they were prepared in a manner that assured that there was no concern for Chometz. Okay, so this is an important thing, which is why today we have a really easy life in observing Pesach, because we just make sure that everything is certified kosher for Passover, and it makes life considerably easier. But we don't just want easy, we want to understand what's going on, which is why we're learning these halachos. So he says also those dried fruits use caution. Elo imkein noda shenisyapshu behechsher, unless it is known that they were dried in a kosher for Passover manner in poles in the sun, al gabe kanim, o betanur shehuch shel l'shem Pesach, or in an oven that was koshered for Pesach use. Afilu te'ein miyveshim mitzimukim, even dried figs and raisins, being gdol mektanim, whether they're large or smaller, asumar, are prohibited. V'chein klipos pomerantzin, which is dried orange rinds. Umikol mokim, nevertheless, hamashke she'osin min atzimukim, drinks that are made from raisins, nog and heter l'shtoso, we are lenient and we do drink from it. We can't on Pesach. Nog and shaloliten l'soch hatavshil neglich v'zefrin. It is customary not to spice dishes with cloves and saffron, mipnei sheyesh behem chashash chimutz, because we are concerned that they may contain chametz. Va'afilu zefrin hagdol b'nimasenu beginos. Even saffron that grows in our country in the gardens, where there is no concern for chametz, asur mishum lo plug, is prohibited, since when establishing the custom, the sages did not differentiate between one type of saffron and another type of saffron. And therefore, it's an ingredient that should not be used on Pesach. V'sha'ar b'samim, other spices, sheyesh bo chashash chimutz, about which there is no concern, she'ein bo chashash chimutz, that there is no concern that they may contain chometz v'chein hamelach, as well as salt. Kodem shenosen osen l'tavshel tzichin levodko, before spicing your food, should inspect and check it. V'im im ein eze garin tvor, to ensure that there's no kernel of the 5 types of grain in it, me'urav bo, mixed into it. So, sometimes you can find you're going through any one of the grains, and you'll look and you'll see, like if you check through your rice, you may find a kernel of a different grain there. What's it doing there? You ever find a corn in there? They may mix through. They're used in. I think also what used to happen, which is where the custom began, is that they used to have big factories that would have different mills that were used. They would have a mill for wheat. They would have a mill for all the different types of grains that they would make, either the flour or whatever it was that they were preparing. And they can get mixed between shifts or barrels, and that was the concern. That's why corn and all types of legumes are not used on Pesach. Dvash ein ochlen ela ma shelo nisrasek. One may not eat honey except for honey that was not yet extracted, literally chopped up from the honeycomb. O shenisrasek al yidei Yisrael l'shem Pesach, or that was extracted by a Jew for the purpose of use on Pesach. So again, this is something that we today in our generation, we're lucky that we have kosher-for-Passover so readily available in our supermarkets. Halacha number 6. Halachically, matzah made from dough kneaded with any beverage that is not a derivative of water, referred to in the Kitzur as fruit juices, may be eaten on Pesach, provided that no water has been introduced into the mixture. Nevertheless, Ashkenazim custom is to prohibit eating matzos kneaded with fruit juice. B'shas adchak, in a situation of pressing need, kagon, for example, letzorach cholo zokin, if there's an ill or elderly person, mutaron le'afos matzos imei beitzim. One is permitted to bake matzos kneaded with liquid of eggs, like egg matzah. O sh'ar mine peros, or other fruit juices, kagon chalav or yayin, such as milk or wine, v'kadome, and the like, rather than water. V'hi nikres matzah ashira, and this is called matzah ashira. Ashira is like a rich matzah. U'bavachi zaru, this is permitted only provided that care is taken to ensure shelo yisarev behem afilu ma'at mayim, that even a small amount of water should not be mixed into it. Aval b'shtei leilos rishonos, however, during the first 2 nights of Pesach, when we have a mitzvah to eat matzah, one must eat actual matzah kneaded with water, tzichin lechol matzah mamish, ve'ein yotzin b'matzah ashira, and fulfilling the mitzvah with rich matzah is not possible. One should not fulfill it that way. V'shalo l'tzorach gadol. Moreover, if there is no great need, also lefos matzah ashira, then one should not even bake the matzah in that form. Afilu kodem Pesach, even before Pesach, l'shem Pesach, or even for the purpose of Pesach. Halacha number 7. Hanosin tavua omurson lifnei ofos. One who places grain or bran in front of fowl at the time when Chometz is prohibited. Yizor l'sitam b'makom yavish. He should be careful to put it in a dry place. Shelo yischalchlu. Shelo yislachluchu. So that they should not become wet and become Chometz. Aval behema, but for livestock other than poultry, however, also litan murson, it is prohibited to place bran. Shelo yislach lechu min arok, since it will become wet from their saliva and become Chometz. V'gam im nosin lehem tfua, and moreover, if he gives the livestock whole grain, yizar loses lehen me'at mad, he should give them a little bit at a time. Shelo yashiru meluch, so that no wet kernels remain and become chametz. V'im hishiru Yevare miyad, and if they left over grain, he should immediately destroy the leftover grain because it's pure chametz. What people do for dogs and for pets, other pets, is that they do have actually kosher for Passover dog food, animal food. So again, look into that. I'm not an animal owner, so I don't really know the details of this. I've never come into direct contact with this question, but I know that they do make, certain brands make animal food that does not contain grain in it, and there's no concern of it being chametz. Okay. The seifim that follow discuss the extent of the prohibition of deriving benefit from chametz on Pesach. So you're not allowed to eat chametz, but are you allowed to benefit from chametz? Okay, let's see what that is. Be'erev Pesach, on Erev Pesach, mish'osha chametz neser ba'anah, from the time when chametz becomes prohibited for benefit. So if you look on our magnificent torch calendar, you will see that there is a time finishing to eat chametz by 11:14 a.m., and it's the 1st of April, and then you have to burn chametz by 12:07. And burn means it's out of your possession, it's done, you're done with it, and it's no longer yours. Okay, so there's a time by which it needs to be, by the 7th hour, we do it by the 5th hour, but by the 7th hour you need to be, rid yourself of all chametz. So he says, from the time when chametz becomes prohibited for benefit, v'chein b'chol yemei haPesach, and so too throughout all the days of Pesach, also lehanos, one cannot derive benefit from chametz, afilu mechametzo shel akum, even from chametz of an idolater. Therefore, lechein, also Yisrael, it is prohibited for a Jew laholich or lishmar to transport or to guard chametz or shalakom, the chametz of an idolater, referring to someone who's a non-Jew, umekol shekain the asur, and certainly prohibited liknos chametz v'shalakom, to purchase chametz for an idolater, afilu b'meosam shalakom, even with their money. So if your co-worker tells you, a non-Jewish co-worker tells you, can you go pick up a sandwich for me, and it's chametz, you can't, and they give you the money, you can't go to the store and buy it for them. If they tell you, can you watch my bottle of scotch for me? I'm going out of town and I'm afraid someone's going to steal it, can I put it in your house? You can't do that either on Pesach. One may not receive wages from work performed with an article that is prohibited for benefit, or forbidden from benefit, nor receive rent for an item used with such articles, even though he is receiving no direct benefit from the prohibited item. Kitzur explains how this law applies to chametz. V'chein, similarly, asur lahaskir oz la'akum, it is prohibited to rent out at the time, meaning from the beginning of the 6th hour of Erev Pesach, to an idolater, behema shetavilo chametz, an animal that will transport chametz for him, o cheder lasum bo chametz, or a room in which to keep chametz, because one cannot profit from an item which is prohibited to benefit from. Okay, it's forbidden to benefit from chametz during the days of Pesach, so you can't profit from that either, because it's chametz. Aval muter lahaskilo behema lishavua shel Pesach, but it is permissible to rent him an animal for the entire week of Pesach, chutz mi Shabbos v'Yom Tov, besides for Shabbos and Yom Tov, bistam, when the purpose is not specified. She'ein ha'akum miforish lo, that is, when the non-Jew does not explicitly state shehu tzarech oso lahavi chametz, that he needs it in order to transport chametz. It means he's saying, I just want to rent your truck. Do you mind I rent your truck for 8 days? You're going to be out of work for Pesach. Let me just rent your truck. Now you don't need to know what he's using it for. If you know that he's using it for chametz transportation, then it's problematic. Afal pi shehu yodea, in such a case, even though he knows sha'akum yolich oleha chametz, even though the idolater will, you know that the idolater will transport chametz on it, it is not an issue. Ein bekach klum. The kevon she'af im lo yolich oleha klum, since even if he does not transport anything on it, yitztorach lefrala ha'yisrael, he still is paying rent for the truck. Kol schoro mishalim, his entire fee, he'll pay the full fee. Ein ha'yisrael mistaker klum ha'chametz. Therefore, the Jew is not profiting from the transport of chametz. He's profiting from the rental. Okay, so there's a distinction here. I'm not benefiting, right? The Jew's not benefiting from the chametz per se. V'chein muter li lahaskir lo chedesh yodur bo bepesach. Similarly, it is permissible to rent a room to a non-Jew who will live there during Pesach. Even if you know that he's going to eat non-kosher-for-Passover food, chametz food, in that room. Nevertheless, it is permitted. Ha'yisrael eino notel mimenu, since the Jew is not charging him schar hachnosas chametz, a fee for bringing in chametz, elo schar dir, you're just charging him rent. You're not charging him for what he brings into it. She'af im lo yachnis l'sham chametz lo yinake mischoro. Even if he does not bring chametz in there, he's paying full rent. He's not getting any discounts, right? Okay. Due to the prohibition, halacha number 10, due to the prohibition of benefiting from chametz, one may not even have chametz fed to one's animals. This sif addresses whether one may give over his animal to a non-Jew who will feed it on Pesach. So can you give your animal away for the holiday to a non-Jew and let them feed the animal, whatever they want to feed the animal? Perhaps something which isn't kosher for Passover. Osur limso, it is prohibited to give over afilu zman harbe kodem Pesach. Even if you say, you know what, I'm not going to do it just for Pesach. I'm going to give it over a week before Pesach, 2 weeks before Pesach. That way, it's included Pesach also. So you're not allowed to, even if it's for a longer period of time, since you know that he will feed it chametz on Pesach, you cannot do that. For it is prohibited to benefit even from chametz of a non-Jew on Pesach, if he does not know that the non-Jew will feed the animal chametz. This is permitted. For the law regarding selling one's animal to a non-Jew for the duration of Pesach, we can see this in chapter 114, in Siman 114. So over here he says, the Mishnah Berurah says that those who give over their animals to non-Jews a long time before Pesach, with the agreement that the non-Jew is to supply his own feed, and does not expressly stipulate to the non-Jew to feed them chametz, may allow their animals to remain with the non-Jews if Pesach falls during this period, even if he is aware that the idolater will feed them chametz. It means it wasn't expressly mentioned. It was just like here, you want to rent the animal for 6 months, no problem. So whatever they feed is there. It means it's not, you're not doing it with that intention. Halacha, I don't know why people would do that, but I guess people would do that. People would borrow an animal. Okay. Halacha number 11. Seif 11. Mutar lomar lemisharso akum. It is permissible for one to tell their non-Jewish attendant, afilu b'shasha chametz also b'hana, even at the time when chametz is prohibited from benefit, which is after that 6th hour. Heil chamos, take this money, uknei lecha mizonos ve'achol, buy food for yourself and eat. Af al pi shehu yodeh sheyikne chametz. Sorry, it is permissible. I said prohibited. It is permissible to tell your non-Jew to go take money and to buy themselves food to eat, lunch. Right? They take a lunch break here. Here's your lunch, and go buy yourself some food to eat. Even if he knows that he'll buy chametz, in a pressing situation, he can tell his attendant, go out and eat at the home or business of an idolater, and I will repay you. Or he can tell one of his non-Jewish friends, can you feed my attendant, my housekeeper? And I will pay you. Avol osur lahakdim lo esamos bishvil mashi yitel misharso. But it is prohibited to advance funds to a second non-Jew to pay for what he will give his attendant. Halacha Yud Beis. Similarly, v'chein mi shehu tzarich laha'achil letinok chametz, one who must feed an infant chametz, Yisa'eu elo akum, should carry him to a non-Jew, v'yachileo ha'akum chametz, and the non-Jew should feed him the chametz. Again, this is probably for a medical need, someone who's in a child who has some type of need for a certain type of health condition that they must eat something that is chametz. V'yifra lo ha'yisrael achakach, and the Jew should pay for their services afterward. Avali Yisrael lo yachileu chametz, but a Jew himself should not feed another Jew chametz. V'im masukan, and if the infant's life is in danger, pshita da'akomoto, that then it is obvious that anyone is permitted and obligated to feed them. And finally, halacha number 13, lishtos hacholov, with regarding drinking milk on Pesach mebehemas hakum, when the milk was from an animal that belongs to a non-Jew, ha'ocheles chometz bePesach, and that milk, that animal, that cow, is eating chometz on Pesach. Yesh osrim, there are those who prohibit benefiting from that milk and enjoying that milk on Pesach. And one who is God-fearing should conduct himself stringently, and especially in a place where the custom is to forbid it, heaven forbid for one to permit it. So the custom today is that we buy all of the milk that we will need for the entire Pesach before Pesach, and also there is special kosher-for-Passover milk that you can find in all of the local kosher groceries and supermarkets. You will see a KFP, kosher for Passover, or a OUP, which is for Passover as well. Things like that, you will be able to see its identification that is kosher for Passover. And then in that case, you can purchase it on Pesach as well. All right, my dear friends, this concludes Siman 117, and now we will begin Ask Away number 36, my dear friends. I look forward to hearing your questions.
You've been listening to Rabbi Aryeh Wolbe on a podcast produced by Torch, the Torah Outreach Resource Center of Houston. Please help sponsor an episode so we can continue to produce more quality Jewish content for our listeners around the globe. Please visit torchweb.org to donate and partner with us on this incredible endeavor.
Thank you, Rabbi. I understand there's a fundraiser going on. Why would listeners want to donate to Torch versus other organizations?
So a very, very good question. Very valid question. I want to tell you something like this, okay? Torch is here for one reason. Torch is here to share the word of Torah with the world. Any one of you listeners out there listening on a podcast, listening in a video, last year alone, our video exposure grew 295%. If I told you that there was an investment in the stock market that is going to grow 295%, everyone would invest. I am telling you, my dear listeners, that last year our YouTube videos alone grew 295% by our viewership. Our podcast, there are many podcasts that grew by well over 200% as well. This is a great investment. I really believe so. I really feel this in my bones. I know myself that I keep a very meticulous log of all of our videos. Last year in 2025, we published 1,092 videos. I don't know about you, but I think that's a lot of videos. Baruch Hashem. To me, it's an exceptional privilege to be able to teach and learn Torah together with so many amazing people, not only you here in the room and those of you on Zoom every day, but also those listening on the podcasts and those of you watching live online or later online or video on demand. And we're on all these different platforms. It's all because we have a foundation here in Houston, Texas, where we learn, teach from our Torch Center, and share that Torah with the world. That's just one component. We have the Torch Center, we have our Torch Media. We also have Torchwood, which is a Torch community with now 15 families, robust programming for the men, for the women, for the children. Every Shabbos, there's over 100 people there for Kiddush and for davening. It's unbelievable what goes on over there. And then we have our newest young professional division, our Unify. It's just unbelievable the things that are going on. And what we're trying to do is really open up for people one time a year where we ask everyone to invest in Torch. This is a time, get in on the ground floor, because the mitzvahs that we're trying to do, we cannot do without the support of the community. That's the honest truth. I don't say it as a cliche, oh, we're partners, da-da-da-da. We cannot do it. We can't keep these lights on. We can't record. We can't have these cameras. We can't do the broadcasting. We can't do any of this without the support of our partners. And therefore, this 1 week that you have, you can go to givetorch.net, givetorch.net, and contribute. Every dollar that you contribute is matched by donors. The entire week, the campaign will be up till we reach our goal, because this is our budget for the year. We do everything we can to not stop even a single program to raise money. We're continuing. All of our classes will be on. Our Monday Lunch and Learn will be on. Our Monday night Musar Mondays will be on. Our Tuesday morning classes will be on. Tuesday night classes, Wednesday, everything is on. Because that's why we're here. We're here not to raise money. We're here to teach Torah. So if y'all would be so kind and generous and support us, we'll be able to end this campaign, just like they did for the temple. Right? What happened in the temple? They said, enough donations. I'm ready to do the same. Please help us, my dear friends. GiveTorch.net. GiveTorch.net. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate your question.
Now, I want to talk about giving to Torch.
Okay.
We are so blessed that God has given us, and it's not just for us, it's for the whole world. As a matter of fact, our choice being chosen is to be a light to the nations, to bring Torah to everyone. Okay? They don't have to all do the commandments, but this is, as you have often said, the owner's manual for living. And for those of us who grew up at a time where a good Jewish education was not available to us, now there was a little bit of here, a little bit there. I am so grateful that I get to come here 4 times a week. But more importantly, as a good friend of mine once said, if you could learn everything from a video or a book, there would be no universities. And here at Torch, not only can you come and participate, but even if you can't come, we take people on Zoom who ask questions. And I don't know any other organization where you can actually participate long distance with a rabbi. So studying Torch is like trying to eat an elephant. You do it one bite at a time. How do you learn Torah? One bite at a time. And that's what you give to us. And for all of you out there, not only is this invaluable, you couldn't put a dollar value on it, but in addition to that, it's always free. And the only way it is always free is if you help provide the funds that we need. They only ask once. You go to some places every single week, they pass the pot and try to get money out of you. Yeah. But here, they wait once a year. They don't bother you. They don't send out a gimme. Once a year. That's all we ask. GiveTorch.net. All my friends are my friends from class. And my rabbis, they're my friends. That is my solicitation from y'all to please contribute. GiveTorch.net. Thank you for letting me speak.
Supporting Torch is one of the best things you could possibly do. It will change your life, Jewish, not Jewish. Being part of Torch will inspire you, will teach you life lessons, and will give you all the tools you need to be successful in life, marriage, family, and all areas of your life. Support Torch if you can. We thank you very much.
I know with confidence that the Almighty will succeed our way and we will raise all the money we need to continue to operate. But I want you to be part of it. And if you can please, whatever donation amount, the smallest, the largest, it doesn't make a difference. I want you as a partner. If you can please go to givetorch.net and donate so that you can be a partner in what we're doing. I'd greatly appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy this episode.